These are people who work hard, but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new live stream. Make sure you guys like the stream down below, subscribe to the channel if you are new, which I assume probably not any of the viewers are yet, but on the replay we'll see. But we have to cover the DNC, and that was really something, and that was not something good. That was something very mediocre, and we're going to talk about it. And we'll put on the face cam in a second. But you have 4 days of just orange man bad, orange man bad, orange man bad. And even when they try to mix in a little bit of the, oh, we'll try to make Kamala look good, it does not exactly land. I mean, you have Kamala Harris going out there, talking about her childhood, probably embellishing certain elements of it. I didn't know that Indians in Canada typically ate a lot of gumbo, but what can I say? Maybe she did, who knows? But you saw the speech unfold. She gets up there and she's just like, thank you, haha, and like doing the whole cackle. I can't even do it. I really can't do a good Kamala impression. I'm not drunk enough. I'm not on Xanax enough to accurately get down the cackle, but she definitely was both of them. She goes out there and she's just like talking. She talks off the teleprompter for sure, but she only goes for 30 minutes. The first 10 to 15 minutes is her just saying thank you to the crowd, her just going out there and kind of just giving all these platitudes about her childhood and how she grew up and became a prosecutor. She left out a few key important details, but those are minor details. We don't have to talk about them. But then she gets on to Trump. No policy. And I aggregated everything I heard from every single speech at the DNC. Meaningless platitudes that mean absolutely nothing. Blatant lies about Donald Trump. No legitimate critiques of Trump's actual policy during his presidency. We hear them stretching the truth and lying about January 6th. Saying Trump incited an insurrection when he said peacefully, he said patriotically. He told people to go home the first second he could get a hold of that rose garden back at the White House when he finally got back to the White House. So ultimately, you see what's going on. In terms of their policies, they have no policies. There's no policy. Just lunacy and lies. Lying about Trump. Oh, Trump's the reason why the border crisis happened. Trump did not gut the border policies that he put in place. They did. Trump did not let the actual border bill die in the Senate that Trump supported. Chuck Schumer did. And the border bill they love to talk about, it did not have any votes on the Democrat side even to pass. Bernie Sanders and like 12 other Democrats didn't support it. And you're not going to get 60 votes for that because Republicans don't support amnesty. They want a tough bill, not a bill that does nothing. The Border Patrol didn't even give it a full endorsement. The Border Patrol endorsed Donald Trump this election cycle for a reason. Joe Biden tried to lie and said he had that endorsement. He never had that endorsement. When we're talking about everything that took place, there were no legitimate critiques of Donald Trump's actual policy and tenure as president. In that speech or in pretty much any other speech that we heard, it's the same tired, worn out, Trump is bad. It doesn't resonate with that many people when Donald Trump is the most popular on net he's ever been in history in an election year. I mean, you could look at it. 2020, he was not in the single-digit negatives in terms of his personal favorability. Back in 2016, he was down like minus 25 in the personality or the personal favorability. Now he's like minus 7, minus 8, and that's with a lot of these polls that we've uncovered the response bias. I provided legitimate proof of it in the video that came out today. When you look into these polls, Donald Trump is actually doing better with voters who, before Kamala entered the race said they were voting for Biden. He's peeling off more voters than the inverse, according to the actual polls. When they sample the same exact people, when they try to, ask them the questions, because the pollsters, they don't reach the same people every time, but this time they attempted to reach the same people. They resurveyed people, and Donald Trump is holding on to more of his support in June than Harris is holding on to Biden's support in June. Some of the sample was before the debate, some of the sample was after the debate, but that doesn't really change the fact that the polls are affected by response bias, and all convention bumps are response bias. But is she going to get a convention bump when her speech was just, what did that prove? She's saying, oh, we're gonna do this thing with foreign policy. She said something about a ceasefire in the Middle East, but she can't even get that done now. I mean, she's the president essentially now because the current one is incapacitated. She's next in line. Well, why doesn't she do it? Why doesn't Biden do it? Why don't they do it together? Well, because they can't, because they're not strong leadership. And why is she calling for a ceasefire in Israel and Palestine, but she won't do the same for Ukraine and Russia? A little bit strange there. She wants to continue that proxy war over there instead of ending that war. Who knows what's going to happen? Try to plunge us deeper and deeper into World War III. I mean, what did she say? The critique of Trump is that Trump supports tariffs or something, when tariffs are actually a really popular policy, especially in the Rust Belt area that Kamala Harris and Donald Trump both need to win the presidency. They said, oh, well, even the tariffs that were costing farmers in Iowa would lose Trump's support, but he actually did better in those regions because they support it. They support the trade war because they want to win it. But that's a whole different thing. But in terms of policy, there was no policy. What policy did she say that she would do? Did she say that she had any policies? It's just like, oh, we'll do this platitude thing. We'll protect women's rights, or some nonsense like that, and lying about Donald Trump. Again, the Project 2025 stuff. Oh, it's his agenda. It would be the equivalent if the Republicans, picked apart like the Democrat Socialist of America agenda and tried tying Kamala Harris to that, except that probably would be a little bit more accurate because Donald Trump, that's not his agenda. His agenda has never been Project 2025. That's a pamphlet that was written by the Heritage Foundation. They do it for every president. It's policy recommendations. They could either take the policies or not take the policies. I think it's dumb that they even did that, knowing it could be weaponized against the president. But the fact that that's what they have to go to proves they have nothing. What critique of Trump's presidency on the economy do they have? None, because there is none. Because Donald Trump's presidency was a resounding success, a resounding economic victory for all Americans. Even those who did not support Trump, they had to lie and cope and say it was actually Obama's economy, even though Donald Trump changed literally every economic policy, and you saw a continued boom, despite the fact that he didn't get like that, immediate rocket fuel that Obama had, available to him because he was getting out of a recession. So when you look at that, Donald Trump's presidency was a success. Foreign policy, oh, he's going to cozy up to dictators. Well, the deterrence, keep your enemies closer type of thing, that worked. Donald Trump was the strongest president we've ever had in American history on Russia. Not necessarily in rhetoric, but in terms of policy. Why do you think that Putin came forward and endorsed Joe Biden for president? There's a reason why he did that, because he knows that weak leadership in the West is better for them. And that's true. We have on the agenda word salads. There were a lot of word salads. There were lies about tax cuts, which again, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act significantly bolstered the economy for the lowest income groups. We hear about trickle down not existing with Reaganomics. The problem with that is globalization, which the Democrats support. Donald Trump actually raised taxes on blue state billionaires with that bill because of the SALT deduction. So, if Donald Trump wants to give all these billionaires all this money, why are they buying out these suites in the DNC? Why are they doing that? It's because that's not how it works. They're just trying to go out there, get these low information voters to just buy in, when in reality, even if let's say I was making like $40,000 a year, Trump cuts my taxes, 1% or whatever, and I, take home an extra, $1,000 a year or so versus, oh, well, somebody that makes more money gets their taxes cut. Who cares? Like, does the average person actually care about that if they're being honest? I mean, I think that the tax code needs to be fair, but in reality, even the way they spin it, it's not exactly something that would, make you sit back here and say, well, I have to vote for them. So not a legitimate critique on anything from Kamala Harris, no vision for the country from any of these people. It's orange man bad, orange man bad, orange man bad. Like, I'm going to go out there and do my best stand-up comedy routine at, making fun of Donald Trump or whatever. That's what this convention was. But in reality, it's like that has been so done, overdone for the past 9 years in all of media. The American people are sick of it, to the point where why exactly do you think this is going to be an electoral strategy? It's red meat for the Democrats that are going to watch. That's fair, but they're all voting for Harris. So what is your message to independents? Even these Republican outreach type of people that are complete and total frauds, what exactly is their outreach? Because anybody that's voting for Trump, they don't care. They're tired of hearing about 1-6. It was years ago. And even so, like, let's say that you think that Trump did act wrong or whatever, why are you going to vote for somebody that stands for every single thing that you oppose? It's just all vibes. It's all platitudes. And maybe that's going to be enough to keep them competitive. I'm not going to lie about that, because you have a lot of stupid people in this country. Harris is like, they say that America is a bad place now. It's like, yeah, I wonder why. Because of you. It's because of people like you, people like Biden, the people that have been running this country into the ground. And then you look at the RNC, ironically enough, the RNC was much more positive. It did attack Biden a lot, but why? Where did they attack Biden? Policy. They attacked Biden in terms of policy first and foremost. There could have been a lot of subject matter, making fun of Biden. He's in a weak state, physically, mentally, but they didn't do that. It's ironic. These people say they're the party of decency. That's out the window. And if the voters actually cared about that in the middle, I think that they see the Republican Party as probably a little bit more appealing at this stage in the game. So Donald Trump, the RNC, very, positive towards Trump, and also negative towards Biden in terms of policy. But when you look at the DNC, it was negative towards Trump, and it wasn't even that positive towards Kamala. The closest thing you had is, her sister gave a speech, or her husband gave a speech, or whatever. Short speeches that really were kind of dull. I mean, I think the reason why that her husband doesn't speak publicly a lot is because he's not a very good public speaker. So when you look at this, no, this is not moving the needle. If there's a convention bump, it's probably going to be because Kamala Harris, or because response bias is going to get even more out of control. But like I was hoping, I wasn't hoping, this is probably better than what I hoped for. But in terms of what I expected, I did not expect it to be this dull. Usually you bring something new to the table. The surprises, the element of surprise. What was the surprise? There was supposed to be a surprise speaker this night. I think they said that just to get people to watch, and there was none. There was no surprise guest. There was no surprise speaker. The real surprise speaker was the friends we made along the way. They don't exist. So either way, this is the DNC. It was awful. It was mediocre. If you're an undecided voter that has heard Trump evil, Trump evil, Trump evil for the last 9 years, and you're still undecided, how is this going to change your mind? It's not going to change your mind. They have no policies. It just, let's fearmonger about Trump. Let's lie about him wanting a national abortion ban. Let's just lie about every single possible policy that Donald Trump has to offer. We'll make them up, because we can't beat him in terms of the policy that he actually has. So you have to make up policy that doesn't even apply to him, like in Project 2025. And that's it. They don't talk about the border. They lie about the border bill, which was garbage, total garbage bill that would have made the problem worse. Just like Biden literally did a lot of the stuff in the border bill that they tout, he literally did it via executive order. And even then the border crisis is still bad. You have all these people here, even if, let's say, people stop coming in at high rates, which they still are, how are you going to get them out of here? They don't want to get them out of here. They want to give them amnesty. And we know that. And it's all about power. It's all a facade. They're trying to, I guess, moderate a little bit And it's not really doing much for them. It's not really doing much for them electorally in terms of getting people on board that were not already on board. That's it. And that's not to say they can't win. That's not to say it's not going to be a close race. But in terms of this being a game changer that they needed or hoped for, or moving the needle, because they're not really polling as well as they are, and they know that deep down. These people are smart, to a certain degree, maybe not. But they know that the polling numbers for Harris right now are extraordinarily inflated. They know that, but there's still, these people that are controlling their messaging are employing the failing strategy. It would take a massive polling miss, because I expect the response bias to die down a little bit, but it would take a massive polling miss at the end of the day. You were talking a few points nationally, which we've seen before, but I don't really see it. I don't really see Harris really polling it, even getting half the voting public on her side at this point. Trump's probably around 48. She's probably, up there with him. But the RFK Jr. dropping out, possibly, and endorsing Donald Trump tomorrow, that is huge, because Trump probably does net a little bit out of that. I'm not saying it's going to be a ridiculous amount, but even if it's like 0.3% nationwide, I mean, how many states were decided by 0.3%? You'd have to give Arizona, Georgia to Trump, even with some of the potential shenanigans and such. In 2020, he would have gotten a lot closer. Wisconsin would have been the state who would have fell short by just 10,000 votes in Wisconsin at that point if he does 0.3% better in every state. And I think that you talk about these states being so close, and RFK Jr. Pulling himself off the ballot in Arizona, that is huge, because you have a lot of people that are like in that kind of iffy, not exactly all that pro-Trump or pro-Harris, but they're technically lean Republican. Donald Trump is like trying to reach out to some of those people, making amends with like Brian Kemp in Georgia, for example. You talk about the election going down the wire, it's a big net benefit to Trump, even if it's 0.1% in every state. But the remaining RFK Jr. voters are overwhelmingly pro-Trump, and I would expect a lot of them to come home anyways, because they'd realize their guy doesn't have a chance, and that's usually what happens in terms of these third-party candidates. Like a lot of the Gary Johnson voters in polling that leaned right eventually came home, but the ones that stuck with them probably, many of them would have gone to Hillary Clinton, and many of them did go to Joe Biden in the 2020 election, especially in swing states, deep red state like Utah, Idaho, maybe a little bit different there, but still. So that's what they have. They have nothing. These people have nothing. It's a clown show. I didn't think it'd be this bad. I did not think it would be this bad for them. I mean, I'm telling you. The fact that some people actually think that was good. I'm not saying, I mean, you could say mid, for them, but even just if you're an independent voter who's like, okay, I'm on the fence, I'm going to watch the DNC, you're not really going to walk away from this and be like, wow, they really convinced me, because it's stale. They've used all their ammunition, literally. I mean, we talk about what's next. We'll see. I mean, the polling is close enough to the point where they may still delude themselves into believing they got a shot to win this thing, and they may actually win, because it's all a turnout game. We got to beat them at that turnout game, but still, we'll see. But we have super chats we want to get to. If you guys want to send in super chats, feel free. Doug says Kamala's speech was only about herself and Trump, not you. Yeah, I know. It was not good. It was not a good speech. It was only, 28 minutes or something. It was not a long speech either. Donald Trump went out there for 90 minutes. We talk about stamina. It's not just that. She has nothing to say. As much as it is Donald Trump has a lot of stamina, she also just does not have a lot to say. That's it. I mean, she's definitely somebody that had a lot of platitudes, but if she talks off teleprompter, she can't do it. But even when she's on teleprompter, she's not good. Joe Biden gave a better speech. Biden himself gave a better speech. Now, Kamala Harris on the debate stage, obviously we'll see what happens. She was not that bad in 2020. I don't know how much she's deteriorated mentally. Probably not, but she was not that bad. I still think she lost the debate, but she held her own. But against Trump, who's actually taking it seriously, doing debate prep with Tulsi Gabbard, yeah, I think Trump's going to be ready for her. That's why she won't debate him on Fox. I mean, she has nothing to lose. You can't go on a right-wing network and debate, but Trump has to go to the least friendly major network to him and debate? You there? You'll do it only there, but not on Fox? Again, a little bit, still just a little bit questionable because it's a debate. The moderators usually are going to be as, relatively reasonable. We've seen debates on Fox before. That's not to say they even have had their own biases or stuff against Trump as well, but in terms of what I've seen out of their debates, I think the debate they had in 2016, the third debate between Trump and Hillary, was pretty fairly moderated, and it was moderated by the same moderator who was super biased against Trump in 2020 in the first debate. But no, we'll see. We'll have to see. But we have to get to the rest of these super chats. Mike Oxard says, I'm not even trying to be funny, but if it's not Kamala in November, it's Americover. The only way they can win is to get non-citizens to vote. It's going to be very difficult for them to do that, by the way, I will say. The number one shenanigans pathway for them is taking advantage of nursing homes and several other things. The whole non-citizen stuff, it can happen. It does happen, but it's far less likely to happen, or the people is willing to do it, knowing that if they do get found out, they're going to be deported, among other things. It's extraordinarily difficult, and it's not as common as some people think. But there are shenanigans. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's not even in the top 3 concerns of shenanigans. So we'll see. Dean Cream Between says the Communist Clown Convention is finally over. It is over. Jadit McSwag says instead of a joy speech, same anti-Trump talking points we've all heard. 1-6 felon, national abortion ban, Trump is immune, voting rights, etc. They won't pass the SAFE Act. They want to pass all these other acts, but they don't want to pass the SAFE Act, which would potentially require proof of citizenship in every state for voting, which is common sense, but they can't do it. And, it's just one of those things. DePueb, thank you for the 2. Fiji Boy says, how is Kamala ahead in Wisconsin? It's majority white. Well, you act like all white people can't be liberal. I mean, Vermont is one of the whitest states in the country, very left-leaning. It's a cultural thing, but I don't think she's ahead in Wisconsin. I don't think she's a good fit for Wisconsin. I doubt she's going to win it. I really would be surprised if she did at this point. But the polls in Wisconsin have a history of really underestimating Donald Trump. Those Trump voters in that state are extraordinarily hard to find. It's interesting because in the midterms, the polls are not really all that inaccurate in Wisconsin. But in the general election, with Trump on the ballot, they are extraordinarily bad. But the fact that it's even a jump ball in the polling is really good news for Trump because he was down by 7 points both cycles, and it was neck and neck both times. Alex Mongold says, do you think RFK Jr. backs out and endorses Trump? Yes, absolutely. I think it's happening tomorrow. 87 ROC Bear says, it's just a way to rally up the suburban women hate Trump and angry. Well, yeah, I mean, they're going to try to rile him up. That's entirely what it is. But how successful are they going to be? That was a big issue in the midterms 2022. But when we're polling the issue of abortion, even with a very liberal sample, it's only 8% of the top issue importance. So I'm not saying that they're not going to try to take advantage of it, but it's really overrated. Donald Trump being somebody that says leave it up to the states, that's kind of a majority position. A majority position is leave it up to the states. But even I'm trying to find the poll in the midterms or the exit polling on Fox. Abortion, even then, it was 10% of the number one issue. So, I mean, even then it was, depending on the state, it was not even as big of an issue in 2022. Maybe more decisive then, but it's definitely, in some polls, it's down to a rounding error. It's not even that much of a top issue. Of course, Democrats are going to try to rally the troops on it, but I don't think it's something that's going to win over a ridiculous amount of independents at this stage in the game. Tom Sav says, do you think Alan Lichtman's predictions are accurate? Well, I do think that they were already proven inaccurate because he thought Biden was going to win. And the Democrats pulled Biden because they knew he couldn't win. So that should tell you about the predictions. If he gets it right and Harris wins, it's accidental. The elections are, if it's going to be close, could come down to 1,000 votes in Pennsylvania. Your model cannot predict, if that's going to be in one column or another. That's the main thing. He always interprets it subjectively. Like, I will agree with this point. Very few voters are swayed by, certain things as much as people really, really think. The polls don't actually reflect reality. You'll see certain surges because certain people are more likely to answer the polls, and response bias seeps into the sample, gets harder to weigh. That's kind of what we're seeing right now, more so than anything, because we see the polls and they sample the same exact people, and you see little to no movement from those people. But you see massive swings in the top line. It's like, what's exactly going on? This is response bias. It really has to be. And it can go both ways. Republicans can, be overestimated. Trump may have been overestimated, but now it's clear Harris is a little overestimated. But the polls are kind of turning a little bit of a corner in some places, and we see that. 538 just includes any other pollster, any random pollsters in their aggregate. It's not exactly a the most accurate historically. Real Clear Politics is far more accurate historically than 538 in terms of their general election polling aggregate. Thomas Willingham says the 23rd is my 52nd birthday. I'm old AF. Well, happy birthday to you on the East Coast. Happy birthday to Thomas. Space Cadet for 5. DePueb says, where's the MAGA hat? It's gone. It gives me anxiety. Well, I mean, I don't have it on me right now. I haven't worn it in a few streams, but we still have it. It's somewhere over there. Stephen Knizik for 10 says, Crowder was right. Kamala didn't even try to offer a policy platform more than half an hour, yet nothing. Most hilarious thing was the DNC's lauded big name was Adam. Well, he was already slated to speak. That wasn't even like the big name. There was no big name. People were like, it's going to be George Bush or Mitt Romney, or some people even said like Taylor Swift or Beyonce or one of these like celebrity types, and that never materialized. I thought it would be somebody like that, probably not Taylor Swift, but like a Beyonce performance or something, but that didn't even materialize, even though somebody did confirm it. Space Cadet says, I forgot my question. Why did Harris X release a poll from the beginning of the month today? Pollsters are weird. It's just what they do. Now they'll release it when so they won't control the aggregate. Who knows? Who knows? Trump is ahead in that poll. But why are they waiting until now when it's going to just fall out of the aggregate in like a week? It's kind of ridiculous because they sat on that poll. Space Cadet says, I forgot my... Oh, he did that one. Mike Feed for 2 says, you should do the breakdown of the Venn diagram. Okay, we have Kamala Harris... unintelligent, unelectable, and what's the other one? Unlikable. I think that's the Kamala Venn diagram. She's right in the middle of it. She's right in the middle. Yeah, it's true. Of course, she's very simple-minded, so she needs Venn diagrams to explain things to her. I mean, she's not cut out for the job. You kind of saw it. She's kind of even like a little awkward and nervous and probably like a little bit drunk or something when she was on stage, which... I don't think that's the main takeaway. It's like one of the takeaways, but the main takeaway was she doesn't know how to control the crowd. How's she going to, control Russia? How's she going to control China? She can't do it. But also, the policy, there's no policy. There was zero policy. Trump is outlining policies. Kamala Harris has none. When she proposes them, they're batshit crazy, Marxist policy. Mike Oxart says, I hope Trump isn't his worst. Well, he can't be his worst enemy because they will cut the microphone off. Those debate rules are helping him inadvertently. Zona Tape says, how can Trump win Arizona if he loses both Pima and Maricopa? It's the margins. He probably, I think that he probably wins Arizona but narrowly loses Maricopa County. It just depends on the margin there. If he loses Maricopa by less than 2, he's probably going to win the state. Pima, he's probably going to get like 40%. If he improves like with Hispanics, maybe he gets like 41, 42, and he'll run it up in the excerpts. I did this on my Twitter. We did an entire state profile for every single swing state. We break it down by population. We break it down by how they voted, mentioning demography, which areas are key. It's a good series. I'd recommend taking a look at it. I might put it on the website and the newsletter too and expand on it this weekend. But let's see. Also, I work in Pinal County, and it's typically red, but this time around, you see it swinging blue? Because that's. I mean, it is growing for sure. I don't see it moving to the left by a lot, especially given some of those precinct trends that we even saw in the primary in like Northern Pinal, those very Hispanic areas coming out like 95-5 for Trump. It was crazy. Even like I think Kari Lake did better in some of those parts than Trump. Trump probably improves on that margin too. Alex says any man voting for Kamala should just exactly. I just don't buy the hype. I don't buy the hype. You think the average, disaffected white guy in Wisconsin is going to vote for Kamala Harris? Because you could make a case why Biden would stop the bleeding for Democrats among white working class voters, especially in Pennsylvania, because Biden's very similar to those people in terms of his, or familiar, not similar, but he's familiar to them. Biden was Scranton Joe. It's a facade, but he was able to pass himself off like he's Scranton Joe. You have a San Francisco liberal, and you have a communist from Minnesota who pretends that he was a football coach who served in Afghanistan, neither of which are true. He's like an assistant defensive coordinator for some third-rate high school. That's not going to really resonate well. You think the average Big Ten, even like sports fan, is going to resonate with that because, the VP is no, of course not. It's like saying Southern Ohio is going to swing 20 points to the right because Vance is like a Bengals fan or something. It's just not how it works. All right, let's see. We have more super chats. Carolyn McNay says, my moderate Cali Dem parents with TDS didn't seem joyful or energized after listening. Steve Kerr was more effective for them. Imagine independence. No, it sucked. It was mediocre. And this person got 0 votes. They're trying to make her into like Obama 2008 mixed with Margaret Thatcher. You can't do it. You can't. It's lipstick on the pig. That's what they said about the McCain campaign. And that's exactly what this is, lipstick on the pig. Obama was right when he said it then, and we're right when we're saying it now. Oppie for 1776, great numbers, says, what roles would you like to see RFK and Elon have in his second Trump term? Also, any other people you'd like to see in his administration? Well, Elon, I think, would be like an advisor. He would probably could lead up he could help with the Space Force. He could help with, maybe he could find some free market way to, stop any sort of radical temperature shifts or something. A lot of it is overblown, but he cares about that, and if he could do it from the free market, then he can do it in the free market. As for RFK, he should do something with the CDC, something with vaccinations. He met with Trump in Trump Tower after 2016 when Trump won, and they talked about that. It just never came into fruition. I think that Trump should actually do it now, and it would be very, very beneficial. Mike Griffin says, what happens if Trump loses? Republicans have no bench, and they will have to contend with millions of amnestied immigrants. I know. It'd be over. There's no denying that. It's very unlikely you win in 2028. They're not going to let the first woman president lose. It doesn't matter how much he destroys the country. There'll be amnesty. There'll be, possible. They'll try. They'll do what they need to do. They'll get Murkowski and Collins to switch parties in the Senate so they can get back to 50-50. They'll cut deals. They'll do everything that they need to do to go out there and just fully destroy the nation. That's it. There is no do-over. There is no we'll tank for 4 years and hit the reset button like some people want to do. It's not how it works. You can't do it. Republicans for Harris is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Some of the justification I've seen for some of these people, very irrelevant people, it's like, we got to purge the Trump. Well, you're not going to win without the whatever you call the Trump cult. They're a cult. You need some sort of a cult following to beat that cult. You're just jealous that your people, DeSantis, all these other neocons that are more establishment than DeSantis even, these type of people, they're dull. They don't drum up that cult following for a reason, and they're seething about it that Trump is the one that's actually able to lead the GOP to victory at the national stage. Midterm years are one thing, but how many seats did Obama lose? Democrats don't try to purge Obama. In fact, Obama's the one that basically told Biden to step aside. The only difference is that Obama's pissed that they, rushed to coronate Harris because I don't think that Obama thinks she could win. When he was giving his speech, he just attacked Trump most of the time. He probably didn't even want to be there in the first place. It just is what it is. It is what it is. Thomas Whitaker says, I helped 5 of my family members register to vote for Trump in our state of North Carolina in the last month, trying my best to bring Trump back to D.C. Well, I think you did a phenomenal job, and I think everybody in chat needs to do exactly what you're doing, because that's huge. That's 5 votes. I mean, who knows? Some of these swing states could come down to 5 votes. If people aren't willing to get people that they know to turn out or volunteer or do whatever, they're leaving a ridiculous amount on the table, and you can't do that. Not this year. Not this year. No way. John Waffle H2P for 20 says, today's speech was absolutely horrifying. Trump needs to win this election or we'll be screwed. Since 60, Trump 2024. Yeah, no, we need to win. It was horrifying in the sense that she is so dumb. She does not know, what the hell is going on. She reads off the prompter. It's not. She just does not have the X factor. Democrats hope she would. She was she was somewhat subdued. But it wasn't like this is like presidential. This is like you're flying blind at the wheel. Not only that, you have somebody with radical ideas who will drive the country off a cliff willingly as well. So that's kind of the other problem as well. Update the ticker here. There we go. Let's see, more super chats. Brittany says Trump needs to bring back the rumbling like on Attack on Titan. Once he wins, he can't be too nice this time around. Exactly. He can't be. They're trying to put him in jail. Like, I understand why you want to unite the country and not try to seek this retribution, but it never ends. If Trump wins, the investigations probably they do continue. They're not exactly going to be able to go about them in the same exact way as before. But in reality, they want Donald Trump to fail. They will actively subvert his presidency. They will have some sort of an insurance policy against his presidency. And we can't let that happen. We cannot let that happen. Ash K2 says there are reports Walz is bringing young men support as he represents non-toxic masculinity, someone who loves his family, school teacher, military, etc. Normies are going to eat this. Well, no, they're really not. I don't see, this guy comes in he wastes his money. He gives me money every chat with the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life for dooming reasons. I don't know if he wants me to, make him feel more at ease, or if he's just trolling or whatever it is. But yeah, Walz is not, people don't care about the VP, period. They don't care. VP rarely moves the needle, first of all. Second of all, you really think Tim Walz, being this, communist soy boy from Minnesota, is going to win over young men with a testosterone level above 200 nanograms a deciliter? You're wrong. I mean, does anyone really think that this guy, he's a clown? Military, stolen valor. He lied about his military service. He is not like he's some, whatever you would say. In fact, it's not non-toxic masculinity. It's toxic femininity coming from somebody that apparently happens to be a man. That's the problem with people like Tim Walz. They call masculinity toxic for a reason, because they want to weaken men for one reason or another, because it weakens society as a whole. They want to make men women. They want to make women more masculine. It's what they've been doing for, it's a part of the communist agenda. Everyone is the same, according to them, until we're a bunch of androgynous blobs. That's what they want. We can't let that happen. Sam Madsen says, maybe it's just me, but I seriously doubt RFK would have the votes to be confirmed between Democrats and well, it depends on what. I don't believe you need to confirm every single possible position in an administration. Obviously, the cabinet heads you have to confirm, but there's some possible position that he could be given that does not require some sort of confirmation. But I think that if Trump is the president, he has that bully pulpit. If he wants him to lead something, he'll have him lead something. He passed a lot of controversial individuals. He got them into cabinet positions with very minimal opposition in the Republican Party. A lot of that opposition is gone. Let's see. I'm Home says, I'm going to see Trump tomorrow in Arizona. Can't wait. We'll enjoy. DePueb says, who had the dumbest speech at the DNC? Probably Kamala Harris, just because this is supposed to be the hype moment, and it just fell flat. I mean, there were a lot of dumb speeches at the DNC. It was a disaster for independent voters, winning them over, which, again, I don't think there was much room to grow. You know, they energized their base for a little bit, but they're already energized to an extent. Like, how much more are you gonna up the enthusiasm among whatever viewers you have? Most people just don't care. Most people are going to sleep anyways before these primetime speakers in a lot of these swing states on the East Coast, like, you know, Michigan's in Eastern time, Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina. Like, those were like the primetime speaking slots. They're not even getting full viewership because they went on so long. Let's see. Some will say they did that intentionally not to overshadow Kamala Harris. Nitin Mari Petty says, if Trump wins, Lincoln Project and Midas Touch would release a video with Jack Smith on the thumbnail with the text, "I'm not done with you." That's one of the reasons why I want Trump to win, is because all these losers on the internet that have lied about him for 9 years so shamelessly would be out of a job, and everything that they would have done for the past 9 years would have been for nothing. It would be for nothing. You lost. You thought you had him. You thought you backed him into a corner. You lost. All of them. All these clowns. All this time. All this energy. These resources. It's over. BB says, didn't watch the speech because I didn't want to destroy my TV. Was it Obama or 2012 level? Walls reminds me of a self-righteous white lib. Well, that's exactly what he is. He's sloppy. He's a minstrel show for, this is what we think the white guy is. That's what this is. Do you think this is going to appeal to the average white guy living in Wisconsin? No. Walls even lost appeal in his own old district that he used to represent back when he was actually somewhat more moderate, in part because he's a total clown. You know, he's relegated himself to just being like Tim Kaine the sequel, except probably a little bit better, well-spoken, but somehow in some ways more sloppy. So it kind of cancels out. You know, these Democrats they live in a different reality. The hype is ridiculous, but they have to try and astroturf it into reality because they know they have no shot against Trump if they don't. John Waffle H2P for 10. Message retracted. Dean Cream Between says, think it's possible for Trump to get 40 in New York or California. I think he gets 40 in New York. I don't think he gets 40 in California. I think he probably, his realistic ceiling is around 38. I think he does better in California. I don't think the home state advantage is an advantage for Harris because she's always underperformed in her home state. And in fact, they know her better than anybody. If there's any place that you think that she'd bleed support from Biden, maybe it would probably be the place that knows her the best and doesn't really like her all that much. J Dogs is On Point released a video with Harris up according to the latest polls. Scary stuff. I hope it's not well, she's winning the popular vote as it stands right now in the polls, but we've talked about the polls. They are prone to response bias. When they polled the same people in the most recent poll, this is only in Texas, but Trump is holding more of his original voters than Harris is holding of the Biden voter base. So how is she really gaining at the level that she's gaining in the polls? It doesn't make sense to me at all. Let's see. Maryland Degati says there are plenty of wins for election integrity, especially in Georgia. This is true. We have a lot of hope. And when one state defortifies, it's harder for the other not to. It's harder for the other to kind of get away with shenanigans because, you know, if one state's going to be clean and it's similar to the other state and it's like 4 points to the right of the other state, it's like, well, this is a little questionable. Why is this going on? So they're less likely to get away with stuff at that point because the irregularities will be out of control. Jimmy Payne for 20 says the 25% unrealized capital gains tax scares the heck out of me. Imagine your house goes up in price $150K and you pay 25% of that. It's like evicting 80% of American people from their homes level stuff. It's communism. It's Marxism. They will try to say it's just some form of just normal democracy or whatever. No, that's not what this is. The capital gains tax, the unrealized tax, them trying to do this and raise it, it's going to make America unlivable for a lot of businesses, a lot of industry. It's going to drive more industry out. The price controls are going to cause more shortages. They're going to make inflation worse if you even have, enough goods where people will be able to buy them. The Harris policies would just be abysmal. They would be atrocious for the country. And that doesn't even take into account the border. That doesn't even take into account foreign policy or any of the other things she wants to do. But the economy, she can't win on the economy. She can't win on the border. She can't win on foreign policy. She, can win, I guess, on abortion, but not as much as some Democrats were able to do even in the midterms. So what is her issue? What is the reason other than orange man bad? That's all this was. And it's not working because most people just don't care as much at this point. Trump is more popular than ever in a presidential election year. If you look at Trump's favorability, even in a lot of these polls that don't look as good for him, you look at his favorable rating, and he is currently sitting at around 44.2%. That's with the... I think there was a Reuters poll that was just atrocious in there as well that had him way, way down. So, yeah, his spread is minus 8.8. He's never been in the single digits this close to an election before. If this day in history in 2020, he was down by 15.7 in his favorables. So he cut his net unfavorable rating in half. 2016, if you want to look at this day in history in 2016, he was down by 28.6. So he's narrowed the gap in half, and he's cut it in half again. I mean, his popularity is going up. It's more socially acceptable to support Trump. It took a lot of miracles for him to barely fall short last time around. He's doing what he needs to do this time around. He's up in the polls, actually, in a majority of swing states needed to win. I'm not exactly saying that it's like, it's not really a good position that the Democrats are in. They probably will cope with the polls, but their coping is off the charts. They may not even get it. If they don't even get a convention bump at all, like we're talking about, Trump starts to regain the lead in the polls after this, it's just over. It is over for them. They may not come back from that. Frank G says, have you seen Jill Stein's tweet trashing the Dems? I saw one of them yesterday. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. John Waffle H2P for 10 says she will turn this country into a police state more than ever before. She will fund the FBI, Homeland Security, and CIA to police innocent civilians. Yeah, I mean, she will try to weaponize the prosecutor-president aspect. She's not going to prosecute actual criminals. She didn't do that in California. She's going to prosecute people that happen to be dissidents of the regime, and she'll do it not because she necessarily wants to, but because she's a servant and is going to submit to that regime and the regime narrative. Whatever they want her to do, she's going to do. She doesn't have much agency. She's not a smart person. She's probably below average intelligence, like in the general public, if you want to be honest. If you see how, she used affirmative action, barely got into a mediocre to like low tier law school. And then what did she do to advance her career? She used her body to do it. And people say you can't say that, but it's true. And if you're talking about qualifications, no, it's 100% true. And it does, I guess, need to be talked about. If Trump is supposedly disqualified because of his sex life or whatever, he didn't use his sex life to advance his career. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, did. She directly did. If she didn't have that relationship with Willie Brown, she'd probably, I don't know what she'd be doing right now. Probably a very low-tier attorney for some law firm, probably not even making six figures doing that job. So let's see. BB says, was the speech even Hillary 16 level? No. Hillary spoke for like an hour. Kamala Harris, I don't even know if she spoke for 30 minutes. It was, honestly, I think you should probably go watch it. I understand you don't want to be mad, but I don't think you could really get mad watching the speech because it just was full of empty platitudes. Everything, we wrote down everything she said that was out of pocket. The border bill lie, the Project 25 lie, the Donald Trump 1-6 lie. oh, Trump wants to pardon the 1-6 protesters, she says, and that's like a bad thing. But, a lot of those people didn't have prior arrests, didn't have prior convictions. You have like praying grandmothers. They arrest them. They put them in supermax for years on end. It's ridiculous. But Kamala Harris, with the actual insurrectionists, what happens to them? She, promotes and donates to a bail fund for them. Several people that happened to be freed from that fund ended up going on to commit murder, actual murder. That's a really bad problem. Kamala Harris has a lot of blood on her hands, and she wants to claim the moral high ground. She cannot claim the moral high ground, not on the border, which, she was given the border assignment. They say you can't say borders are, but they said borders are. She was put in charge of the border, trying to stop the flow or whatever. No, I mean, honestly, she caused the border crisis with all the things she said in the 2020 primaries. It caused all these people to pour in the country. Of course she caused the border crisis. She is the border crisis. But no, I think it was probably more on par with like Biden's 2020 speech, which was like 20 minutes and all virtual, but probably like weaker. Because Biden's State of the Union speech was objectively better, and I thought it was overrated as hell, even just being objective, because it was a campaign speech. Didn't do much to appeal to independents. Kamala did next to nothing to appeal to independents in her speech or her campaign, because her campaign is not really even meant to win. It's a Democrat turnout operation. That's what they're doing. And we'll see if it pays off for them. It could. If it does, we're screwed. That's why we got to get out and vote, because they have no arguments. Andrew Byer says, any chance Trump comes within 10 in Oregon or 3 in Virginia? Not in Oregon, especially because, third parties are kind of having a negligible impact. I think Virginia could be within 5. I think being within 3 is a little bit of a tough task. But anyways, guys, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel as well. Let's hit 195K. Like and subscribe. Let's hit 100 likes or 1,000 likes as well. We're not quite there yet. Herman Breckenridge says, did anyone hear about the Texas AG investigating the illegal vote? Well, I know that they're investigating it, but if there were actually illegals registering to vote, it would show up in the registration data. We don't have that unless these people happen to be registering for Republicans, which is extraordinarily unlikely that that's going on. And the whole report that they showed that had like 1 million people a week in Texas has had like up to that point when it was released, didn't even have 100,000 voters, new voters registering in the state. So it's not, that part is not, you're not probably going to find much. It's good to have a broken windows policy for it though. But who knows? Steve Dow for 10 says, if 2020 repeats in 24, Trump is likely tied in the popular vote and easily wins the tipping point state of Pennsylvania by 3 points or so. He is going to win. Well, I mean, that is true. If the polls are off by the same margins, which is not something you could really go over, you can't always bank on that. Like, I think we can bank on there being some polling miss in Wisconsin where Trump overperforms to a certain extent, or maybe even in Michigan, and maybe the inverse in a state like Nevada. We should probably account for some of that. But in terms of the polling, yeah, if it is like 2020, Trump is going to win easily. It will not even be close. And I think you are seeing a polling, bump for Harris that's largely fabricated, not necessarily fabricated intentionally. Maybe by some pollsters, they will try and weigh to make her look better than not. But in terms of the polling, it's just, we polled, we got Harris +2 weighting properly. But when we looked at the poll, we had such a ridiculous Democrat oversample to the point where it's kind of hard to say that the poll was fully, I guess you would say, indicative of the actual electorate that's going to turn out even after waiting. Riley Moore says, you hear Iran is trying to assassinate Trump. I've heard of that. I don't know to what extent what's going on. I don't know if they probably weren't behind the Pennsylvania stuff. I think that we should probably look about 5 hours southeast of that event, and maybe you'd find the culprits. But Eric from Wisconsin says, thoughts on the ruling of Kansas about Second Amendment. Looks like I'm getting an auto pew pew before GTA 6. I did not see that happening. I did not hear about the ruling, but sounds good if they're allowing for more freedom in that department. So we're about 50 some minutes into the stream. Let's see here. I don't think we have any more super chats. If you guys have any more super chats, feel free to send them in. We'll go for at least another 5 minutes. We'll look in the regular chat, but in order to keep the stream going, because I know it's getting late. It's getting real late on the East Coast. It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning. So we have another one. John Waffle says, unfortunately, UC Hastings is in the top 100, which means that even though these people are stupid, they will hire them because of the prestige of the UC system, affirmative action at its finest. Yeah, I mean, top 100 doesn't mean much when there's, like 160? It's like bottom half. If you're presidential material, usually if you go into law, a lot of these presidents have been to, Harvard, Stanford, Yale. And I'm not saying you have to go to one of those universities to, be successful or to be intelligent, because you really don't. But UC Hastings, even with the affirmative action, that's iffy. That's really iffy if you want to say, oh, she's a really great attorney who totally got by on merit, because usually that does not happen. It just doesn't. So, I mean, it's true. There are high-profile attorneys that go to really bad law schools. Look at Michael Cohen. They went to the worst one in the country. But again, he's a horrible lawyer, so. I skipped your second super chat. Hold on. Did I? I didn't mean to. I'm trying to find it. I don't believe I did. I see a message retracted for $5. That could be it. Jimmy Payne says, Fox News saying abortion crowd doesn't want abortion to be left to the states. Overrated. Well, I mean, they want to codify Roe v. Wade, but they'll never have the votes to do it, which is the problem. So she's running on something she can't do, something that when they had the trifecta, maybe they could have done. They're losing the Senate regardless. That I will tell you. John Waffle, H2 Pieces, Taft went to... Well, that was how long ago? That was a long time ago. What was Cincinnati ranked? It's probably roughly around where Hastings is. Maybe a little better. BB says the convention was darker than 2016 or 12. Oh, definitely. It was just all about Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. I don't think it's going to move the needle, because how many times have we heard this stuff? How many times? Nick Elmer says, I think this election comes down to Pennsylvania. What should Trump do to secure Pennsylvania? Philly's so corrupt. Well, he's got to find those voters. He's got to make sure they vote. If you're in Pennsylvania, go to the, phchase.com or .org. You can get involved. But no, I think he's probably going to win Georgia. I think it's going to be close, but I think he's going to win Georgia, North Carolina. He'll win his 2020 states. Pennsylvania, if he gets it, it's over. In terms of how they're counting the votes, it takes a few days, but we just need to beat them by the margin to the point where we can get it called on election night and it's over. We can do it. Donald Trump needs to really run it up with those white working class voters, some of which voted for Biden in 2020, legitimately in northeastern Pennsylvania. We could pull that map up again, but that was unique because Biden had that unique appeal to the Northeast. Irish voters, Catholic voters. Obviously, Biden's Catholicism is largely performative, but stuff like that can sell to a lot of these people that are like on the fence. But now Trump is polling ridiculously high with Catholics, which used to be a swing demographic. Now Donald Trump is polling super high, but you look at the map, Pennsylvania, all that blue in these white working class areas. You didn't see the same thing in like Saginaw, Flint, in Michigan, which is somewhat similar. You didn't see the same thing in the Fox cities where Trump's percentage went up. Trump's percentage went down in much of these places, partially because of the familiarity with Biden. So, if Trump's able to reverse that, I think he would have reversed it against current Biden, but reverse it against Kamala, that's a piece of cake. They're spending a lot of money on North Carolina, Georgia, and Pennsylvania for a reason. because they know those states matter the most. And I think resources can be overrated, but in terms of early allocations, North Carolina, it's probably not going to flip, but the early voting starts early. Same thing with Pennsylvania. You want to make sure you go out there as soon as you can. So, we have more super chats. We got a lot of pouring in. Evan Sully says, do you think Kamala will be able to energize black male voters in places like Atlanta and Milwaukee to make Georgia and Wisconsin more competitive? Well, they're competitive already. I don't think Kamala is going to energize black male voters. If anything, she'll energize them to not vote or vote against her. Black men don't like Kamala Harris. It's not like Obama, where Obama had that universal black appeal. Kamala will energize certain black women, which again, that's most of the black electorate. 60% of it to 70% are black women. But black men don't like Kamala Harris. Trump could easily get 20% with that demographic, especially in the younger generations where partisanship is far less ingrained compared to the older generations. It just is. Donald Trump probably does get like 20%, in the mid-20s with young black men, very small portion of the electorate. I don't think it's an electoral priority to, appeal or change the messaging to appeal, because the messaging already does have that appeal. You have to get people voting, and how do you get people voting that are in a very blue community but happen to, not vote but want to vote for you? It's like micro-targeting. How do you get it done? It's tough. It is tough, but it can be done. I think it will. If you look at even Philadelphia, we like to hear about Philadelphia and shenanigans, and I'm not saying there weren't any shenanigans in Philadelphia, but I think the suburbs were more of a culprit, because Trump actually improved in Philadelphia in 2020 by like 4 points. Nobody talks about it, but it happened. And he actually cut the raw vote despite higher turnout. The raw vote margin of victory for Biden was lower than it was for Hillary Clinton in 2016 when Trump took the state. I'll say that as well. But the suburbs, probably a little bit of sussy stuff in some of those counties, some of those collar counties. Some of the shift probably, it is legitimate because familiarity with Biden. You didn't see the same thing in a lot of these Wisconsin places, Michigan places. Although there were a fair share of stuff going on in those states too. DePueb says, if Trump wins, what could he do to make sure America never gets in this position again? Well, he's got to actually use the power that he has and do what he needs to do on immigration, do what he needs to do on a lot of stuff. Because what Trump, he's not going to be able to save the country in 4 years, but getting the ball rolling to the point where we're in a much better position as a nation, position as a party, position to, pass the baton, maybe to advance. We'll see what happens in 2028. But that's a long way away. I don't want to talk about that just yet because it's pending on this election if we even have a 2028. Apex Caliber says, could other states use the Arizona ruling as precedent? Depends what you mean by the Arizona ruling. Are you talking about abortion? Because I'm not sure what you mean. Heart of Honor Films for 10. Thank you for the 10. Nardo for $100, the largest super chat of the night, says, I don't think that RFK will endorse Trump because of his wife. What impact does RFK really have on the race? Well, what would his wife have much to do with that? It's not like people don't have differences with their wife. I think his wife should stay with the fact that RFK Jr. is somebody who, he got screwed by these people. Why should she not want Trump to win? Look what Biden, look what Harris, look what the DNC did to RFK Jr. Democracy, they basically kick him out of everything. They freeze him out of everything, treat him like a second-class citizen, try to get the third parties off the ballot in a lot of states even after he leaves the party. You should. If you actually support your husband, you probably should be okay with his political decision. It also would help you if he actually Trump wins and RFK gets a job in the administration. But I don't think it's his wife's decision at all. I don't think that there's any poll that Trump's wife really has over his policy. I don't know why it would be ridiculously different. But BB says Trump is running a better campaign than 20 or 6. I agree with that. You know, there's not as many fiery moments as 2016, but I don't think that people really get the political climate. Obviously, Trump has that baked into the cake. A lot of it is part of his brand, part of nostalgia, and a lot of, in terms of what Trump kind of is bringing to the table now, is people are looking for, actually, ironically, returning to normal, which is Trump as president. But maybe, hopefully, things can be more smoothly in terms of his agenda. A7 IROC Bear says under Harris, the suburbs will be S-hole slums. Yeah, probably. It'll get worse. Apex Caliber says the ruling on proof of citizenship for voting reinstated. Oh, that's huge. I didn't see that. I did not see that. That is actually good. Like I said, I don't think that non-citizen voting is something that's even like the major shenanigans concern, but it's something you want to make sure you cut down to zero. You want broken windows policy on such a thing. You want it. And it's good that they're actually doing that. And I think it's a really good thing. Nardo says, I meant RFK's wife. Yeah, I know. I know what you meant. I don't think that she's going to have enough pull. Is it the elite she's loyal to or her husband? Who knows? Who knows? Who cares? We'll get the endorsement and we'll take it. We'll run with it. We'll add 0.3% to the total. That's crucial in a close election. We'll look in regular chat. Someone said that Trump is going to win in 6 weeks. We'll see an October surprise. Well, the Woodward book comes out in October. I'm just worried that it's going to come out before a lot of people vote, but there could be some things in it. I mean, definitely they used the Woodward stuff against Trump. Apex Caliber says, will you live stream RFK and Trump tomorrow? No, I'll be busy. I'll be traveling. I'm not going to be live streaming as well until probably next Thursday. But I'll be posting videos. Andrew Byer says, what's the main shenanigans concern? Harvesting from places like nursing homes and universal, VBM, where everybody gets sent a ballot if they request it or not. I mean, some people get multiple, and they say, well, there's no evidence it's shenanigans. But in reality, of course, there's no evidence because you don't know who filled it out. But, there's people... you look at a lot of these like nursing home precincts, especially, there's more shift to the left in some of them. What's going on? I think one of the owners of many of them in Arizona is actually under investigation as we speak. So we'll see what happens on that front. But what we do know is that these people on the left, they take advantage of people. They will find ways to get people who don't even care, to vote. They will do it for them in many cases, and it could be, and it's arguably been very decisive. That's kind of the main. It's not machines. I don't like machines, but it's not machines. Illegals voting, it's more of a concern than specific machine stuff. But the number one thing is definitely harvesting and in some of these places and what they do to some of these people. It's just beyond what you could imagine. But if it was barely enough last time, it's probably not going to be enough this time. So people that are like, well, we can't get out and we're not going to vote because they're just going to take it. That mindset is what they want you to think. They don't even have to do anything at that point. So people need to vote like their life depends on it. There's no justification for sitting this one out or not voting or letting your friends not vote. Harvest our own ballots. If someone's like apolitical, be like, hey, do me a favor. The country's on the line. Find a way to convince them. You vote for Trump. Find out something that they would find unappealing about Harris. Let them know. Make sure, even just like get them a mail-in ballot even. I know some people don't like that, but, make sure that they get it, of course. Obviously, they would have to do it legally themselves. But, like, if it's just something like that, that's like +1 in Pennsylvania. Just do it. Or if you're in a state, you're hanging out with one of your friends is like in-person early voting, be like, hey, you know, I want to go vote for Trump or something, like do it just for the memes. And they'll be like, yeah, we'll do it. And then go to the polling place, and then that's +1 for Trump. My vote doesn't matter. New York, your vote does matter because we want to win the popular vote. We want to make New York competitive, and down ballot races are crucial in New York. It could decide the fate of the House. So everybody needs to vote. But I mean, it is true that the states that matter the most are the main 7: Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. Those are the states that matter the most. So we'll wrap things up in about a minute here. We've been going on. It's 1 a.m. on the East Coast. BB says no ceasefire for Dems coming out of the convention. They can't negotiate their way out of a paper bag. You think that they're going to get a ceasefire done before the election? I doubt it. I highly doubt it. I'm voting Trump for the first time in Georgia. Well, there you go. Yeah, third parties, like, people don't like the two-party system, but people need to understand that there's different factions within each party that, you know, over time can grow in influence or weaken in influence. Third-party voting, like, if you really hate both candidates in, like, some down-ballot race, I could kind of see it. Or if it's, like, a deep red state and it's, like, a protest vote against, like, a rhino senator, it's one thing. But in a swing state with the election on the line, we can't afford to throw votes away on novelty candidates when the country's on the line, especially this election. That's why RFK Jr. dropping out is good. Former Bernie Bro Green Party. Well, welcome then. That's see, we have converts. Trout 811 says, will this election be close or a landslide? It'll be close. Even if it's going to be a landslide, you have to take it like it's going to be close. Every election will be close. It shouldn't be close. The fact that it's close is absolutely a testament to how this nation has fallen. But we have a great shot to win. We got a great shot to win. Ash K2 says GOP needs to win back the suburban. Well, the suburban married women do vote Republican. People don't understand. A lot of it is a generational shift more so than, I voted for Romney, now I'm voting for Hillary. Like, that voter does not exist as much as people make it out to be. DePueb says, before the end of the night, is there anything you could say to give us some hope? Yeah, the Democrats, they entered the convention leading in Poly Market or actually a week ago they were up in Poly Market by 9%. Now they're down by 3%. And Harris gained today in Poly Market, but during the convention it didn't move. So we'll see. All right, we're going to end it. Make sure you guys like the stream down below, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Follow me on social media. The links are in the description down below. I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.